Have you ever wondered how to hack into a woman's mind without her knowing? Imagine having the powers to get inside the mind of anyone you want. I mean, really get in there, like planting a thought so deep, she'll think it's her own idea. Imagine the power to subtly, yet effectively, influence a woman without her even realizing it. Sounds like magic, but it's real. The secret lies in something we Shoguns call subliminal warfare. And trust me, it's more legit than you think. If you've ever heard of Shogun Method, you might already know what we're diving into today. If not, well, by the end of this, you might just be Googling it yourself to find out more. But first, let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation where you're dating an incredible woman, but something seems to be somewhat off? You know she's into you, but for some reason, she's holding back. You try everything, like being direct, dropping hints, even just letting things be. But nothing works. Most guys are familiar with this. I know, it's frustrating as hell. You're left wondering what the fuck is going on. You scratch your head, wondering what you're supposed to do in those circumstances. Well, today, I'm going to tell you. And it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. Or, like what we Shoguns like to say, it's how you plant the idea deep inside her subconscious mind. This is where subliminal messaging comes into play. And if you're familiar with Shogun Method, you'll know that everything about communicating with a woman is subconscious. Here's the thing. The issue isn't just communication. It goes way deeper than that. It's about how to hack into a woman's mind, embed your desires into her brain without her even knowing. We're talking about planting a seed in her subconscious, a seed that grows into a thought or feeling she believes is hers. And that is what we mean by subliminal warfare. Now, before you start thinking this is some kind of woo-woo hocus-pocus, let me assure you, it's 100% real. But it's not as simple as reciting a canned line and hoping for the best that it sticks. Nope, it's much more intricate than that. It requires patience, finesse, and a bit of psychological know-how. And that's where something like Shogun Method comes in. In the program, we dive deep into mind-hacking techniques like Implanted Commands. And we're going to explore that technique today. I hope you're excited, because this can be a real game changer for you. Here's the thing though, non-Shoguns try Implanted Commands, and they usually screw it up because they never knew how to do it properly. If you mess this up, you could push her away. We're playing with deep layers of the mind here. It's like walking a tightrope. One wrong move, and you fall down into the abyss. And once you're irrelevant in her mind, she loses interest in you quickly, and you don't want that to happen. The first thing to understand is the art of subliminal messaging. We Shoguns like think of it as psychological warfare. But warfare usually means brute force. But in this case, instead of brute forcing your way into a woman's brain, you're covert and subtle. You're planting thoughts, ideas, emotions in her mind without her even knowing what you're doing. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're talking to her about vacations. You casually mention how romantic Paris is, even if you've never been there. No big deal. Fast forward a few weeks. She's suddenly suggesting a trip to Paris, convinced it's her own idea. You planted the seed, and she's watering it and nurturing its growth without realizing it. That's how Shogun Method's subliminal warfare works. Let's break this down further. Like everything inside Shogun Method, there are specific steps to follow. I'll share with you what those steps are. And so, make sure you have a pen and notebook handy. The first step is to lay the foundations by creating the right mental environment. Let's say you want her to think about commitment and cementing your relationship as a couple. So, you might casually bring up a story about a mutual friend who just got engaged. Let the story brew in her mind for a while. Then, after some time, bring up the topic again. You might say, "Remember Alex and Sarah? I was just thinking, isn't it interesting how some people just end up realizing they're perfect together?" That line sounds subtle and innocent enough, but there's plenty more to that line than she realizes. You're steering her thoughts into imagining that she'll be perfect together with you. Now, you may ask me where the implanted command is in that line. Well, it's this sneaky phrase, "how some people." What you're doing is you're indirectly implying to her that if some people behave in some way, she must also behave the same way. That's how we are all wired in the brain. Humans almost automatically imitate other humans without knowing it. There are 44 implanted commands in total inside Shogun Method. But for today, you'll learn one how some people. You can use it to make her imagine anything and think it's her own idea. Here are some other examples. Just think how some people find their soulmate and live happily ever after. Isn't it interesting how some women finally meet their one true love at the unlikeliest of places? It's amazing how some people are fated to be together forever, even from the day they met. Easy. Here's something you must always remember. How you deliver the implanted command is tremendously important. As you deliver the line, you've got to use the right tone and pause at the right moment. In Shogun Method, we use this technique we call blotching to great effect. With this technique, you'll be subtle, because if it's too obvious, she might just catch on and realize what you're doing. So, here's what I recommend to you. Try this in a low-risk situation first, maybe with a coworker or friend. Start small. Maybe get them to suggest the place for lunch that you wanted to go to. Notice how it feels to guide the conversation without being obvious. Pay attention to how they react when they think it's their own idea. Now, let me tell you a story about a shogun who was dating a girl who wasn't ready to commit to him. Instead of pushing, he started using implanted commands. He'd casually mention about committed relationships, then reinforced those ideas with comments and anecdotes. Within a few months, she was the one bringing up exclusivity, convinced it was her own idea. But there's a flip side. Another guy tried the same thing but got impatient. He used implanted commands, but in an obvious way, and she caught on what he was doing. Instead of feeling nudged, she felt manipulated. And no surprise, she pulled back real hard. He almost had her, but now he's being ghosted completely. That's the risk you run if you're not careful. So, instead of running amok with implanted commands, do this first if you're new. Start with something simple, something with low stakes. Get her to suggest that new restaurant you want to try. Embed the idea casually. Reinforce it later. Observe how she reacts. Like everything in Shogun Method, the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. You'll find yourself with an almost unfair advantage over women in love. Now, it's my duty to warn you about the downsides of implanted commands. Once you get the hang of it, it's hard to turn it off. You might start influencing people without even meaning to. I once accidentally convinced my Italian roommate Giacomo to like pineapple on pizza. He still brings it up sometimes. Subliminal warfare through implanted commands is powerful, but it's not something to take lightly. So, if you're serious about mastering this, Shogun Method dives even deeper. We talk about techniques like fractionation, which can take your powers with women to a whole new level. But I must warn you, like everything else inside Shogun Method, it's not for the faint-hearted. In fact, it's not for most people. Most men just isn't Shogun material, it's true. Okay, we've come to the end of this video, and so to summarize everything, here's what we've covered in 4 key points. Here's the definitive guide to how to hack into a woman's mind without her noticing. 1. We started by introducing the concept of subliminal warfare. You learned how to plant thoughts and ideas in a woman's mind without her even realizing it. 2. We then explored the Shogun Method technique of implanted commands, the importance of subtlety and blotching, and the risks of being too obvious. 3. We touched on how to nurture these ideas, using real-world examples and stories to highlight both the potential and the pitfalls. And 4. We discussed how this technique can lead to deep, lasting influence when done correctly, with a nod to the Shogun Method's advanced strategies. Now, if you're really curious about the depths of this rabbit hole, maybe it's time to look into Shogun Method. It might just be the missing piece you didn't know you were looking for. If you're interested in learning more about these powerful techniques, we've got something special for you, the Shogun Method online masterclass at fractionation.org. In this masterclass, we break down fractionation and other advanced techniques like implanted commands in detail. It's knowledge that takes your understanding about women and your influence over them to the next level. The good news is that the masterclass is online, and so you can sign up today and start learning mind-hacking tactics immediately. So, if you're ready to dive deeper and discover how to master these powerful mind control techniques, head over to fractionation.org and join the Shogun Method online masterclass. You'll walk away with insights that can transform the way you connect with women and get results you never thought possible. Click on the link in the video description to start right away. fractionation.org.